Hello everybody, how's it going? I decided that since I'm in the middle of so many different projects that I would just kind of jump straight into the middle of one of my other projects. This is not going to be a full video in the sense of I'm going to completely elaborate on the final product. You're probably never going to actually see the final product in this video anyways. It's possible you may never see it, I don't know, because this is a t-shirt project. Making t-shirt designs is something that people have asked for a lot before, but I just have never gotten around to it. I'm only one person, there's only so much I can do. But I decided, you know what, there's too many things that are kind of going on right now, and I put it off for too long, so I thought maybe I'll make a small collection of t-shirt designs, and I'll see what I can do with them. I don't know who I'm going to give them to. I thought maybe Shark Robot might want to have something to do with me, but probably not. So that's what we're going to be doing. There's several different things I want to talk about in relation to this. They're not all going to be exclusively t-shirt things, but I thought that might be a good little side project for me to do in the meantime, especially since I'm so exhausted right now. I just got done paying, I think, $7,000 worth of checks this morning, just because of quarterly reports and paying for internet for everyone and so forth and so on. So mentally I'm quite exhausted, but I'm also free. That's a good thing about doing that sort of thing, is that once it's over, it's completely over. Now, in relation to this particular design, you probably recognize it from this image, this original image. A lot of people, I've always really liked Amoya's look in this one, and even tracing back over it, for the most part, it's not exactly the same, and I think a lot of it actually comes down weirdly to her mouth. Like, just the fact that it's pursed down like this makes her face look a little bit longer. Whereas it's the same exact image. It just, she just doesn't look exactly the same because of that one little minor detail. Okay, but here's my general idea. I have several different t-shirt ideas. Here's another one, which you might recognize. I thought it'd just be that and nothing else. This is a sketch you guys might have seen on Twitter back in January. That's one of my t-shirt ideas. I have a couple more of them. I'm sure I'll come up with something involving fences or bricks or something stupid, because I know you guys are in love with that. But for the time being, I'm going to concentrate on the Saiyan ladies. It'll be something, I'm not sure what the tag is going to be, but it's going to be just this, and I think I'm going to close off the bottom with some text. I'm not sure what it's going to be. It may just be like Saiyan ladies or something, or it may be what if Saiyan women came to Earth, or like, I'm not sure what it's going to be yet. That's probably too much, so it'll probably just be Saiyan ladies or something. But that's my general idea. So it's going to be this, and I might do something in regards to the background. I'm not sure exactly, but you can see why this is going to be a long video. I actually had my degree from college in graphic design, but I was actually never, like, I'm okay at graphic design, but I've always just been more of an illustrator, and that's more what I concentrate on. So when it comes to big flashy things where you look at it, it's like, oh, they look so professional. I don't do that. Let's be clear. I don't do professionalism. Okay, so as you can see, right now I stopped at Amoya. I got her line work done, that's where we're at. And you can see from the original, like, completely different person, I've put her through the trenches in regards to redesigning her over and over and over again. She was always the weaker of the two in terms of that initial drawing, and I've been reworking her consistently over the years. Oh god, it's been years. So my problem right now is that I've had to do this primary drawing of her, I don't know, like 4 or 5 times now, just because I'm not really happy with it, and it keeps being a problem. So, I'm probably going to be doing another draft back over her today. She's more or less okay now, but I want to explore and see if I can actually get her to be a little bit better. It's possible that this is where I'm going to stand, though, so if the final product, if and when it ever comes out, actually just looks just like this, don't worry about it. Okay. So, to that end, I'm probably going to pull in some Google image results and just... This is a good practice. We're not going to be tracing things, but one of the things I'm looking for is I want to try to enhance her pose if possible. Let's get started. And a lot of that's just going to come down to basic form. And I think I actually want to make this side of her body a little bit more slender, because I think that's where a lot of my problems are coming from. So whenever you get a sort of basic pose down that you sort of like, even if it's not as fully realized as this, it can just be like a stick figure, like do this or something. As long as you have a rough idea of where the placement's going to be and how everything works, you're fine. So once you are at that point, what you can do is go into Google Image Results or anything like that and just start pulling in things that you think might be good reference images. Because, again, especially for a t-shirt design, you don't want to trace, especially, like I've been over this before, but tracing definitely has its uses in actually learning how to draw. But whenever you trace, everyone can tell. Like, it's super obvious who's tracing and who's not tracing. The point of actually bringing in images like that is as reference, like you'll see here in a second. The proportions of a real person are very different. I've covered this in another video. Are very different compared to that of someone that is on model for a cartoon or just illustration, whatever it happens to be. They're very different things. So you have to make adjustments. So straight up tracing is not really possible. So one of the things that I've kind of been having problems with is I definitely wanted her to, like, I don't want both of them to just have their arms on their hips. As much as I enjoy hands on hips when it comes to ladies, you can't do that every time. Just 3 out of 4 times, apparently. She originally had one, like, dangling down. You can see in the primary. Like, you can barely see it here, but primary used to be like that. But it looked a little bit too limp. And no matter what I did with it, because I didn't want her to look too actiony or anything like that in this particular pose, I eventually decided, I'm just going to lock this shit down right there and not worry about it. And with her, I decided I want one of her arms to be doing something. And originally, of course, in the original image, she was kind of doing this laughing pose. And I decided, you know what, I'm not really nailing in the whole Saiyan thing. So I decided, it'd be nice to have a scouter in there to play that up. So I threw that up there. This is my path of logic with this hand. And then I decided, well, what do I do with this hand? And originally I think I had it displaced behind Amoya, like she had her arm on her back or something. But that's not quite that interesting. The biggest problem is that since Cherry's personality is that she's supposed to be very, I don't know, not necessarily seductive, but she's very, She knows, she has a lot of personality. She knows what it is that she wants. She's energetic. She's, what is a word I'm looking for? Sexy. Just do that. That's a nice generic word. Not necessarily sexy in the sexual context, but just like JoJo sexy. She's sort of like that. She just has that sort of personality. So I wanted to make sure that she did have this sort of slinging of the hips going on to make it look like she was both in control and, she knows what she's doing and, just conveying all those sorts of things. So you can't really do that and also have one arm just kind of hanging here off to the side, right? You can't really have it be behind the back either. You can't, like, since she's already doing this with a scatter, you can't have her be like behind her head or whatever. So hip. It's on her fucking hip again. That's the easiest way of dealing with it. Okay. So that's that. That's my path of logic with that. So a lot of problems I've been running into as a result. I ran into a lot of problems with the face. Because the face right now looks fine. Used to, it was just a mess. It was just a mess of things going on. But a lot of it is it just seems like it's not 100% perfect in every single way to me. And that's not really something I can explain. It's just something I see personally by eye that most people will never notice. Not that I'm like the grand high marshal of expert facial design or anything like that. But I think I know what I'm doing. Think. So we're going to be working on that too. One thing I did want to cover is, since this is a t-shirt design, it's a little bit different than just a standard illustration. And I will explain the differences in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Not really. One of the first differences you have to worry about is, since you are sending this to a print, it's like right now I'm working at 7,200 pixels by 7,200 pixels for no real specific reason. It could be just as long as it's big. You know, anything larger than probably 5,000 is probably going to be fine. But that's the general area that you're going to be working with. And you do that, of course, because since it is in print, it needs to be at a high enough resolution that whenever you put it on something that's giant, the size of a human being's torso, then it's going to look fine. Whereas if you just drew a little bitty crummy picture that was, 500 pixels, then, once you print that out, it's going to look like crap. You can't do that. Any printer is going to reject a design like that. So if you're doing that, you need to make sure that it's actually printed out to the right size, or its resolution is high enough. One of the other things you have to worry about is the amount of colors that the design can support. The more colors that a design has in print, the more expensive it's going to get, because it's not like digital design. You're physically using ink, right, to be able to print these things out. No matter what the design is, you still have to print with ink. So if you're printing something that's just like a black square on a white t-shirt, then it's probably not going to cost too much, because it's just a black square. And getting the materials for actually printing the color black is pretty simple, so no need to worry about that. But if you're doing something like a complete illustration, like a painting, like let's say that you're printing like a Rembrandt painting or a Baroque painting of some sort onto a t-shirt, that's going to be expensive as hell, because there's a lot of color variations. The materials of just printing something like that are going to be a nightmare. So typically what you end up doing, and I'm not sure if I'll have to redo this picture or not. If I do, it shouldn't be too bad, because I can just redo the line work, is usually you would work in vector rather than raster, which is what I'm doing here. Raster is just this, you're drawing with pencil lines. All the pixels have like a opacity to them, and they blend, and that's what raster is. Whereas vector, and I can't draw in vector and paint whole side, but vector basically is like that. There's no aliasing going on. Like, everything is completely binary. And more importantly, a vector image is going to be mathematically drawn. That is, you're not physically drawing it like this. What you're doing is more using like a line tool to say, here's coordinate number 1, here's coordinate number 2, and the program will say, okay, here's a line. And then you'll tell it, well, I want this line, but I want it like stretched out here, or whatever it is. And then you'll just keep making lines like that over and over again, and you're not physically drawing them, but the program itself is drawing the images. And that's advantageous because you can draw that at pretty much any size, like 500 by 500 will be just fine. And if you want to print that on a big billboard, like if you're driving down the highway and you want it on a billboard or something like that, then you can do that. You can just tell the program, okay, scale up this 500 by 500 image to something that will be reasonable for printing onto a huge-ass surface. And the program will just scale it up, and since it's all mathematically derived, then there's no issue. So, in this case, I am drawing by raster, which is probably not a great idea, but I did notice that most t-shirt places seem to be accepting things like that. So I'm not going to worry too much about whether or not something is completely perfect in that regard at this point. So I shouldn't run into any problems but it's possible that I might. But you'll notice that even now, like the line work that I'm finishing on like Amoya and so forth, it's not binary. Like, a lot of the times I will draw in binary lines, which will look like this. Which I could replace all the lines with things that look like this, just go back over it a second time, and that would be fine because there's no variation, so you don't have to worry about the way that it prints to being fudged or anything like that. And also, normally the way that I shade, which you can see here, it's usually pretty... It's not cell shading or anything like that, but it's pretty close to that sort of thing. So there's no need to worry about that in that regard either. And I tend to not use, like, painting, blending, or anything like that. Everything is, you know, again, not cell shaded, but you know what I mean. So the printing costs shouldn't be too much. I don't think. It depends. I'm not an expert when it comes to printing. But we shall see, shan't we? Yes, shan't we? Alright, so what I'm going to do now is pull in a reference image I found on Google Image, looking just now, of a handsome young man. Now you might say, Sure he isn't a man, or is she? They may as well be because you fucking muscle, stupid face, duh. Whatever. But more importantly is you're basically just looking for the human form. Like, it doesn't particularly matter whether or not it's male or female, as long as you are skilled enough to make corrections. That's what actually matters. So in this case, what I'm wanting to do is I'm just looking for something that has that same sort of vibe to it. Obviously, this is not lining up correctly, but it doesn't really matter. Basically, the only thing you're doing here, and I tried to line up the arm as much as I possibly could. The only thing you were doing here is just trying to ensure that the bone structure and everything is exactly as it should be. Now, as I said, a cartoon sort of model with its proportions is not the same thing as a real person. Sometimes they can be kind of close, but it's not going to be the same thing. But if you scale appropriately, then it shouldn't be too bad. And you'll notice in the original primary image, I didn't like the way that her hand was resting on her hips because it was just too flat. Like, everything was too uniform. That is sort of a natural pose. You know, the human hand does do that, but I wanted to look like it had a little bit more energy to it. So one thing I'll actually have to do is move this a little bit further away. So I'm going to rip off her forearm. Sorry, Moya. And actually, hold on. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut this out. I'm going to draw this real fast. Over here. So that I can move it cleanly as a new layer. We'll just do it this way. I just want it moved just a little bit over. Yeah, about right there, I guess. And of course that's going to cause this upper arm to have to move a little bit. So that's what we're going to do here. And you just have to keep making little bitty alterations like this. I always say this in my videos, but if you think that people get these things right the first time they ever do them, you are mistaken. Like I said, I've done... Let's get your smiling, handsome face out of here. That if you think that this is right the first time, you're mistaken. It's taken me, I think, 5 or 6 tries now, just trying to get her just the way that I want her. And I want to make sure that it's actually correct. Like, even now I know I'm going to have to redraw some of this. I want to make sure that it's correct because if this is going to be on people's bodies, I want to make sure that it actually looks good. And with my stupid NWF picture of Leon from earlier, that's not going to matter as much because it's more comedic. So it's meant to look kind of wonky looking. Whereas this one is meant to look very, like, it's supposed to be handsome. It's supposed to be handsome, you know? So I can't really get away with doing that. More importantly, we have our basic form down. And I think actually what might be creating some of the problems with her head is the fact that her hair is furling down so aggressively. So if I pick that up a little bit, And it's a little bit better. So there's little minor alterations all across this thing that I'm going to be doing. It's going to take a long time. And because her head is probably dipped a little bit too low, too. So actually, one thing I want to do here is since I'm more or less done in regards to fixing certain things like this, I think things like this this primary of her hand holding the scudder is detailed enough that I want to keep it no matter what's going on. So I'm going to copy this, change its color. If you don't know how I did that, don't worry too much about it. It'll take too long to explain all this nonsense. I think I'll copy it a few more times, make it a little bit darker. There we go. And lastly, I think I'm going to change the color back down to something that matches the original primary for the most part. And there we go. And this mainly, you see what I did here. Like, I didn't physically redraw the whole thing. You don't have to do that every time. But what I wanted to do is just to make sure that the basic outline of her body was fixed, which should be more or less okay now. And like I said, I'll probably go back over and rework this several times over in the process. Actually, hold on. You are the wrong color, little Miss Arm. There we go. Okay, now that you've done this, turn it off. No, come on. Off and on just to see what you got. This is the good thing about working layers. And her face seems to be a little bit fixed. I like the shape of her body a little bit better. I'm going to have to add some center point lines so that I know exactly where everything is now. And that should have us set on the next primary that we do. Or more specifically that I do, because you guys just get to watch. Or more specifically to listen. Because you don't have to do any of this shit. I thought I'd give her like a little scarf. Or it's not really a scarf. I really wanted this to be not like a turtleneck, but just a little bit of loose cloth coming out. Give her a little bit more personality. That's one of the things I wish that Toriyama had done more. Like, I always enjoyed seeing the Saiyans that have unique little, flares to their armor design. You saw that more in the Bardock special. I really like the Bardock special. It's probably my favorite thing out of Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball Super has been doing much better, though. Like, it's been improving quite a great deal. It's really going to great strides to try to fix all the problems that Toriyama introduced in regards to power scaling and so forth. And Super is actually turning out pretty well. I'm not going to go into detail about it, though, because I'm pretty much done. That's what I just wanted to talk about today. Okay, so short video. Basically, this is sort of an elaborate update video in regards to everything. Still working on... I've put the art gripe on the back burner because it's so long. Still working on the current animation, which is only 1,000 frames long, but, just taxes and everything else have been killing me. So it's just been on the back burner. Working on t-shirt designs at the same time. There's several of those going on. This is just the one that you're seeing now. Like, everything's a mess. So just that's what I'm doing right now. Also, I'll probably be doing another movie commentary track in the future. I'm not sure when, though. It could be as soon as next week. It could be as late as 5 years from now. I don't know. But that's the gist of things, how they're going right now. Is there anything else I wanted to talk about in regards to this process? T-shirt designs, everything else. Again, sizing. Don't get overly elaborate with your colors or the amount of information that's on the page that will require a bunch of inking on the, as far as the t-shirt people go. They can do that. Like, they can, in theory, print anything. It's just going to get more and more expensive the more that you do it. So if you have something that's incredibly elaborate, unless they know that it's going to sell like hotcakes, they probably are not going to bother printing it. They're not going to accept the design. So keep that in mind. I will work out the details of the text in Photoshop, if you're wondering. So in theory, the stuff that's going to be down here, I'm not sure how I'm going to lay it out exactly. I'll probably just go through and pick different fonts and like containment. It'll probably be sort of like that with a little subtext thing under it. So I'll raise that up some. Also, whenever you're doing this, give yourself some breathing room on the edges of the canvas. Otherwise, you'll run into problems later. You can always reduce the resolution of something, and you can always just add more canvas space, I guess. It's a good practice. You're already working huge. There's no reason to have a 10,000 by 10,000 canvas and then work 10,000 by 10,000. You can just drop down to 8,000 and you're fine. So that's the gist of it, I guess. There's probably a lot more that I'm not thinking of. I guess working CMYK, I guess, would be another thing. If you're going to get that hard on into it, I guess. For those that don't know, like there's different color modes. Like you can find it in Photoshop. Just go into your modes selection, but there's like RGB and there's CMYK. Print is typically CMYK, and that's just to help you see what your final product is going to look at whenever you're printing with physical media. So those are my hot tips, I guess, for as far as that sort of thing goes. Sure, this isn't a funny video or anything like that. Just I'm in my work state mentality right now. So I guess that's it, guys. I have that video coming out. I don't think it'll be too much longer. Although who can say, we're still assembling everything here at the farm too. We still haven't got that goddamn fence up because our uncle decided not to lend his driver that we needed, and we just been sitting around waiting on getting another one out of order. Anyways, but I'm wasting everyone's time. That's the gist of things. Let me you guys know. What the fuck is wrong with my brain? Let me know, you guys, there we go, what you think about the idea of t-shirts, whether you be interested in t-shirts. I'm sure a lot of you are, since I've never offered them before. I'm not going to be obnoxious or anything and mention them constantly or put them at the end of, or the beginning of every video or anything like that. I'll do the same thing I do with my Patreon. Just once in a blue moon, I will sort of mention that it's there, but I will refuse to elaborate on it any more than that. And people will get angry at me for refusing to mention that I need to make money to survive or something like that. But hope you guys enjoyed the video, I guess. Hope you enjoyed seeing my thought process as I sit here thinking about things that are probably fine as they are right now. I think she looks okay now. I think I did sort of fix it. I think it was mainly just the fact that yeah, it's just that her body was a little bit too loose before, I think, and the details were a little bit too loose. I think if I just get it a little bit more solid, nailed down, it's going to be fine. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Let me know again what you think about all this. Alright, see you guys next time. Bye.